From the Defensive Player of the Year award to the Most Disappointing Player of the Year award, both we're going to call it DPOYs. We're going to go over all the NBA awards possible today here with the analyst Ki and obviously me, the analyst Linus and Ki. So let's start off with the awards mentioned above, the DPOY, but the first one, the Defensive Player of the Year award. I think this is an obvious choice. Let me just bring up my stats over here. It's got to be Jrue Holiday. It's no doubt, it's got to be Jrue Holiday. With 4th in steals per game, with 1.4, first in total steals, by the way, 10th in defensive rebounds as a guard, tied second in defensive win shares, all while being only 13th in total fouls. And let me get this straight. Before you question his impact on defensive ends, he's been able to destroy other people on the defensive ends, just erase one guy. Let's look at the Miami series. Jimmy Butler. Do we even really have to talk about Jimmy Butler? We know what he did. Jimmy Butler, hell no. The Hawks, Trae Young, in a 1v1 situation, he clamped him. Trae shot 43% from the field and 27% from the three-point line. Suns, D-Book, and Chris Paul. The strip in Game 5, we don't even need to talk about it. D-Book was always clamped by Jrue whenever he was guarded by him. In the clutch moments as well. Whenever PJ Tucker fouled out or was in foul trouble, Jrue Holiday had to step in to guard Devin Booker. And Devin Booker, he couldn't do anything. And Chris Paul, man. Remember that stretch when he had 10 turnovers in 2 games? Chris Paul having that type of night? It's just the only thing that Jrue Holiday can do.
Agreeable. You can clearly see why he's wearing the Bucks shirt. I'm not a Bucks fan, but I'm going to have to go with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Well, it's your favorite player, and that's not why I picked
One of my favorite players.
Sure. Well, the reason why I picked Giannis Antetokounmpo, I agree that Jrue had a huge impact for Bucks in terms of defensive. He locked down D-Book, he locked down Chris Paul, locked down Trae, he locked down all the star mans in the franchise. Well, my pick for reason why I picked Giannis Antetokounmpo, this guy was just dominant all over the stats. Let me just read it off here. 2nd in total number of blocks out of all players in the playoffs. 1st in blocks per game, 1.0 steals.
누구인가?
1st in total defensive rebounds, 3rd in total offensive rebounds, 1st in total rebounds per game, and 1st in defensive win shares. 2nd tie for Jrue Holiday, 1st with defensive win shares for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I agree that Jrue definitely deserves to be there. Definitely deserves to be the Defensive Player of the Year spot. But I'm going to have to disagree and go with Giannis. I think, obviously, Bucks were disappointing in the season before, in the playoffs. They were first seed. They didn't really meet the expectation as a first seed. Our expectations as a first seed be like, they at least got to make the conference finals. Like, they have to show they got upset by Miami last year. It just wasn't falling for them in the playoffs. Regular season, they were going off. Not the playoffs though. This year, I think it was a huge breakthrough, especially for Giannis. He really showed in the last game of the finals, like Game 6, 50 points. That was just unbelievable. But his defensive showing is not as highlighted as much as his offensive shares. I think this guy deserved the Defensive Player of the Year award.
I like how you mentioned the last year's bubble. Because last year's bubble, the difference was, on the defensive end, we got cooked by Goran Dragic. And who is guarding Goran Dragic? Eric Bledsoe. Jrue Holiday comes in, what happens?
Locked up.
Exactly.
Locked
Jrue
up.
Holiday. And I like how you said overall, Jrue Holiday can guard perimeter like a dog. He can get the steals. He can just read the whole situation, just like, and boom, he's gone, right? And then you might say, oh, but he can't guard big man. But then he blocked DeAndre Ayton. We're not talking about just any center. DeAndre Ayton, one of the best centers this playoffs, got blocked by 6'4" Jrue Holiday. And the way he was boxing out DeAndre Ayton here and there whenever Giannis was matched up against a perimeter defender, that was incredible. So it's gotta be Jrue Holiday in my opinion.
I wouldn't disagree with it, but still, Giannis. When I think of Giannis in the playoffs, especially in the finals, though, the way he blocked the alley-oop against the DeAndre Ayton, still in my head. That was shocking. I still think Giannis deserves a decent shout alongside Jrue Holiday. Still for me, it's not Jrue Holiday. It's Giannis Antetokounmpo. Well, other than Giannis and Drew, I have some honorable mentions, especially like Capella. I think it was amazing. He had 4th in total offensive rebounds. He's a pivotal part in Atlanta Hawks' run to the conference finals. Also have Ayton, Jay Crowder. I think he's a very good role player. I think Ayton had a really good breakthrough season.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. For honorable mentions, I obviously have to include the Bucks Nation, Splash Mountain, Brook Lopez. Most blocks in the whole playoffs with 34. 4th in blocks per game with 1.5. And 5th in defensive win shares. And that block against Kevin Durant in Game 7, we don't even need to talk about that one. Just watch it yourself. But this guy was just outstanding in the post, or not in the post, but inside the paint. Inside the paint, his dominant was being it was felt. The way Brook Lopez guarded those big men, he looked like this tall compared to every other center. Like, he looked very tall. And his block percentages were skyrocketing, and estimate, and then just I'm lost for words, because Brook Lopez, before, we've always mentioned how like he can't be like guarding those pick and rolls, but then he was guarding pick and rolls pretty well this season, rather than last season or the season before or the season before or the season before. You get the point. But obviously he can't be the DPOY because his feet are still slow. He got cooked by Bruce Brown, but I still have to give Brook Lopez a fair shout out.
Mm-hmm. Brook Lopez, I think he had moments where he struggled in the pick and roll situation, but he definitely got better. I think, especially his performance. This is more offensive, but his performance against Atlanta Hawks when Giannis was injured was I think he deserves a good shot on this too. Yeah, is there anything else? Any players that you want to mention? Like, I think of Kawhi Leonard.
Oh yeah, Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard obviously has to get a shout, but I didn't want to include him because of the sample size. Kawhi Leonard's sample size is a little small compared to other players, so I wouldn't include Kawhi in the DPOY, like the true DPOY conversations, but Kawhi is definitely up there.
Mm-hmm. It's really disappointing that he got injured during the series and he couldn't play more. I think he would have been a decent shout if he kept going in the conference finals too. But yeah, unfortunate. So our defensive player of the year,
Drew Holiday.
And for me, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Thanks for watching Away End on YouTube. To lose more IQ and sports knowledge, subscribe to the Away End channel.